All right, guys, we are live on different social medias. I welcome you all, respected panelists, for this panel today. The topic of panel discussion is what does a Biden-Harris win means for our communities? Each of our panelists will get 4 to 5 minutes of their time talking on the topic provided, and then at the end we might have some question and answers session for 10 to 15 minutes, and this session will last for 1.5 hours. That's 90 minutes. And we have live viewers. If there are any specific questions asked, then I will ask to our respected panelists to answer those questions if we have from our live viewers. So without any delay, to begin this panel discussion, APIS for Biden, Harris 2020, and South Asian for Biden, New York. On behalf of this, I would like to invite Carolyn Spencer, she is also the campaign manager, Deborah Rose, North Carolina District 2. Please welcome her views on this panel.
Wow, thank you all so much for having me. I'm honored to be here tonight. I can't believe y'all want me to go first all the way from North Carolina. As you can tell, I am from here. My name is Caroline Spencer. I'm originally from the eastern part of our state, and I'm just so excited to see so many folks on here that actually are friendly faces that I've worked with in North Carolina. So I've just been smiling and chatting with folks and just so excited to be here. So again, y'all might be wondering why North Carolina. We are a battleground state this year. I just got a news alert that that Trump is gaining a lead here. We're like 1 point difference here. It's definitely going to come down to the wire. But I'm actually just wanted to give a shout out to John Mulholland, who was my first boss in politics. He was my boss when I did field staff with a few other folks on the panel. And so now I'm working in campaign management, and I'm so excited and honored to be managing the campaign for Deborah Ross in NC2. So you may know or may not know, North Carolina has been historically gerrymandered for the last 10 years. So even though we're a very much purple state and could go either way, our congressional delegation has only had 3 Democrats. They're really good Democrats, but it's not enough. So just last December, judges ruled that the maps needed to be redrawn as a remedy. Hopefully we'll have more fair maps after redistricting this next, after this cycle. But things are looking good for Deborah Ross. We need them to look really good for Deborah Ross because high turnout in Wake County means really good things up and down the ticket. So we are one of the only states that has a Senate race, a governor's race, the presidential, obviously, and then all of these opportunities to pick up congressional seats. So Edison Wilkinson may tell you about Kathy Manning over there in Greensboro. She also is likely to come to Congress along with Deborah Ross. And then if you're looking to make some calls to help North Carolina, we also really may pick up Patricia Timmons Goodson over in Cumberland County, and maybe Cynthia Wallace too. You may have followed the Dan McCready race last cycle. Cynthia Wallace is running in that 9th district. And then Mo Davis all the way out in the mountains in the 11th congressional district here. We just have so many opportunities right now to flip these congressional districts. And if the selection of the president, if things get hairy, if it comes down to Congress, picking up all of those seats will be crucial because then North Carolina would have a blue delegation. So we're working really, really hard here to really push turnout, really help these other congressional candidates. You may or may not know Wake County is kind of home, Wake and Orange County and Durham County is home to the Research Triangle Park. So we are, Wake County is actually now the most populous county in North Carolina. So if we can turn out voters here and really run up the score, then things look really, really good for Governor Cooper and for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Senate race and others. So that's been our goal all along. We've worked with every community. Actually, Deborah is going to be kicking off a phone bank tomorrow with youth AAPI folks. They have a council here as well. And so she's really excited to be doing that. And we've done a few different town halls with folks. So we are working really closely with the Biden team here. Actually, the North Carolina state director for Biden was my boss now, Deborah's political director on her Senate run in 2016. So I know I don't have to tell y'all what's at stake here. What's at stake, is affordable health care. We have so many people that do not have health care right now. North Carolina was one of the states that has not expanded Medicaid. So we have, I think the current numbers are north of 500,000 people in North Carolina that do not have health insurance. And thousands more have lost their health insurance due to being out of work and maybe losing their jobs. So we are just really, really working to make sure that we can bring healthcare and make it more affordable for folks. Social Security, I know I'm 34 and here I am talking about Social Security, but it's something that people really care about. I graduated on the tail end of the last recession. And so a lot of my peers are just now getting into their foothold into a job and being able to save for retirement for our age kind of feels like a luxury. So programs like Social Security are very important for our financial security as well. It's not just about seniors. And then of course, handling the coronavirus, because we've got to get people back to work, but we can't do that until we can keep us all safe from the coronavirus and handle that. So I don't know if I've taken up all my time, but I would love for y'all to help us out in North Carolina. I'll put in the chat my email address and I can get you some links to sign up. I know there's AAPI phone banks here in North Carolina specifically, as well as other phone banks. And we could get you connected to Deborah or to Patricia Timmons Goodson's race or others. But we have early voting running through Saturday. Actually, my boss, Deborah, was one of the state legislators who got same-day voter registration passed in North Carolina. So in 2008, that was really critical for Barack Obama to win because so many people registered and voted just one stop in the same place. And so that still is around here. So kudos to Deborah for that. And we're just seeing a huge surge of young voters here. So we are all so hopeful. And I know that we're going to bring home a win because we're going to have so much help from people like you all that are working hard around the country, just doing so much. So if you have friends here or family here in Wake County, in Raleigh or Cary or Apex or Fuquay-Varina or Knightdale, we could really use their help, encourage them to vote. Every single vote is gonna matter. So with that, I just wanna thank y'all for having me and I'm so excited now. I just get to listen to all of my friends. So thank y'all again. And I'll put in my email in the chat.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much, Carolyn Spencer. Like it's unity is strength. We work together to bring blue back in the White House. Thanks again. So just shoot us your information in our chat box. Like you said, we have all our relatives, friends out there too. So we together reach out to them, get out and vote blue. Thanks again. Now, I would like to invite Karim Farista, Texas AAPI State Director, for your remarks. What does a Biden-Harris win means for our communities?
Well, Sumant ji and every single person who's on this call, thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the Biden campaign and for Democrats up and down the ballot. My name is Karim Farista. I am the Texas Asian American Outreach Director, and I am so pumped for this election. There have been more than 8.5 million Texans who have cast their vote. We have record-breaking turnout. We have already surpassed 2016 Asian American turnout. We have surpassed 2018 Asian American turnout. And I just got note from our data director earlier today that we have surpassed any and all expectations for Asian Americans to turn out in our state. And we are so excited to be sharing those numbers with y'all very, very soon. You'll probably see them on the press. But what we want to say is that there are 800,000 Asian American voters who call Texas home. So when asked the question of What does a Biden-Harris administration mean for our communities? It means that we see ourselves in the White House. It means we see ourselves in our next Madam Vice President. We see our lived experiences, the lived experiences of our aunties and our uncles, our moms and our granddaughters, in making sure that the immigrant story is heard. You know, the Biden campaign has made a 7-figure investment in the Asian American community through paid media. And just this week, it has released an ad in 9 different languages. Our campaign in the state of Texas is taking place in 15 plus languages to the Asian American community. We are not taking a single Asian American vote for granted. We are trying to earn every single vote in this community, because we realize that when we have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House, we are ensuring that our lived realities, our parents' stories, their wildest dreams are heard, seen, and respected. That an administration represents our values of integrity, of honesty, of compassion, of hard work, of goodwill, and to really make sure that every single day we can look up to the White House and we can have our nephews and our nieces and our grandchildren look to those who sit in the highest offices of this country, and that they know that Asian American voices matter, that the AAPI community matters. So I just want to join you in thanking you for the incredible amount of work that you're doing to activate, mobilize, and organize the Asian American community, from our East Asian brothers and sisters to our South Asian brothers and sisters, to show a unified front. We are 5.5 days away from the most pivotal day in our lives. Early voting ends tomorrow in Texas, and we are being graced by Senator Harris herself with 3 stops in our state. Tomorrow, we had Secretary Julian Castro today going across our state to make sure that the voices of Asian Americans are heard. But what I really want to impart to you is, if you have 30 minutes, if you have an hour, if you have 2 hours, I hope you will join us. I hope you will join us in making calls to our Asian American brothers and sisters. I'm dropping in the chat box all of our phone banks that are taking place from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day. We are calling in Chinese to our Filipino brothers and sisters in Tagalog, our Smiley brothers and sisters, Iranian, Korean, Japanese, Muslim, Sikh, South Asian, and Vietnamese. I've also dropped in some of our priority zip codes where these elections are going to be won or lost by just a few hundred or a few thousand votes. And then, of course, if anyone's interested in a phone banking training, I'm sure y'all are all seasoned professionals and know Open VPB like the back of your hand. Y'all are more than welcome to watch the phone banking training. But all of today, all of tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday, we are going to be calling through these lists. We know that when folks in our own community reach out to other people in our community, they feel heard. Later today, Khizr Khan is going to be calling every single Muslim. Connie Chung is going to be calling every single Chinese American in our state. And Ambassador Rich Verma is going to be calling every single Indian American in our state. And we're doing this particularized community outreach is because we realize the importance of trusted community messengers talking to other members of the community. We know that there is a surge in Asian American activism and engagement, but when we think about a hopeful Biden-Harris administration as early as November the 4th, we know that the work needs to be done in the next 5 days. So I hope you take a few minutes of your time. You will join us in making calls. You will join us in sending text. You will join us in posting on your social media, and you will join us in reaching out to your family members and to your friends and to your loved ones in Texas. Texas is America's largest battleground state. We have 38 electoral votes, and we cannot wait to give those to Joe Biden and to Kamala Harris. Please go to iwillvote.com, make a plan to vote. Please text Texas to 30330. And if you have any questions about the work that we're doing in Texas, please check them out at joe.link/TexasAAPI. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate the community up in New York that's supporting us. And I hope to see you very, very soon at one of our future phone banks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karin Chris, who is also the Texas AAPI State Director. Yes, definitely. We need to beat number 45 with a sizable margin. So, like you said, we all get together, get out and vote and bring number 46 as our President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Thanks again. Now, I'd like to call Mai Lim Thai, Washington State Representative of District 41, for your
Thank you.
remark.
Thank you, Somnath. Thank you for having me here in this space. Just seeing across the screen all the people who are working really hard to turn out a vote across our country is really awesome. I get to serve as the first refugee in Washington State Legislature. Got elected in 2018. My first session was 2019. Couldn't wait to do this work with you all, and it's definitely an honor to be in this space. It's being shared. This is a historical moment and opportunity for all of us. We, as you might have seen, the AAPI data is not a secret. We cannot solve our problem until we know our issues and the root cause, right? From the AAPI data, the Vietnamese Americans have the largest number of voters who lean not just Republican, but lean voting for Trump. So I know that my communities have work to do, and we did that. We formed an affirmative group, the Vietnamese American for Biden's, get right on to work. We too hosting weekly training for phone banking and text banking. The two states that we have identified that would have significantly impact in this election would be Pennsylvania and Virginia. However, we couldn't stop ourselves from sharing some love with Texas. We've been doing quite a few phone banking for Texas as well, knowing that I believe the release yesterday, the number one API last name have eligible voter has voted is Nguyen. That if that is not an indication, I don't know what is. We certainly is going to win this election, y'all. But what's really impact for our communities, the Vietnamese Americans is a group of refugees who arrived and take refuge in this country post the Vietnam War. And that impact not just Vietnam, it's impact the entire Southeast Asia. And I would be remiss if I don't bring in my brothers and sisters, Southeast Asian brothers and sisters, the Cambodian and the Laos. And among that, many of the mountainous ethnic cities who live among us, escaping the political regimes, political communist regimes currently occupy our countries. And so certainly immigration is on top of mind. The win of Biden-Harris ticket is the win for humanity, is a win for what is meant to be the beacon and the light for the world to follow when it's come to human rights. It is as anti-communist as anti-communists come. So I couldn't really speak more than the importance of winning this elections. It's not just about bringing back decency, it's bringing back humanity. Vietnamese American for Biden is here. We're not going anywhere. We believe that this is our home. This is where we belong. And we are grateful to all the activists who've gone before us to give us the right to take refuge, to build light and build lives in this country. And we are happy to join hands with our brothers and sisters across 50 states. And we are going to deliver the win for Biden-Harris for the future of our children. And I thank you for your hard work. And I thank you for your work before the elections, after the elections, because after this, we begin to build back better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mylene Tai, Washington State Representative of District 41. Yes, win, win, win. Biden-Harris win means winning the democracy back, winning everything in our communities back to normal. Thank you again. Now, I'd like to call upon J. Reginald Davis, LA educator and legislative assistant, for your views on what does a Biden-Harris win means for our communities.
Yes, thank you for having me. I want to thank you once again for the invitation. I apologize for the noise, however, in the background. I am excited to be here. My name is James Davis. I work for Representative Edmund Jordan of District 29 at the Louisiana House of Representatives. I've been, my first session was actually in 2016, when many of you can remember the police riots that sparked out all around the entire country. The incident of Alton Sterling that launched a wave of just madness and chaos in our streets, and police brutality started initially in Baton Rouge around that time. And I've had the honor and privilege of working for the legislator who serves as one of the family attorneys. And as you can imagine, just working here at the House of Reps, it's just been an awesome experience. I've got to learn a lot as a legislative assistant, but I'm also a teacher, right? And so there are some things that that are utmost and foremost to me as an educator. First of all, in answering the question of what a Biden-Harris election means for us, it means basically a revert back to the policies under the Obama administration. As an educator, we've fallen back into policies, the failed policies of school choice, and things that are just not working right now under what's considered to be education reform. However, former President Biden, has pledged to dramatically increase federal aid to public schools, basically funding that we aren't getting right now. The Biden administration also has pledged to return to some of the successful policies of Barack Obama under a policy where we basically navigated helping schools move through a lot of issues that were rigorous under education standards and encourage them to lift their caps to public schools and to offer conversions for basically failed improvement strategies. By contrast, President Biden would basically call back for a scale back of standardized testings, education reform, and it would basically be a key goal under him to make sure that we move towards a policy that criticizes the restrictions right now of charter schools. I thank you all for the work that you all are doing. I'm glad to be here. I'm actually glad to see several of the former colleagues that I've worked with in the past do some of the awesome work we do. Early voting has ended in Louisiana as of yesterday, but there's still work to be done. Call your neighbors, call your friends. I don't suggest knocking on doors right now unless you're a skilled expert under these standards. And I thank all of you for the work that you all are doing, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John Reginald Davis, for your valuable remarks. Next, I would like to call on Hira Sheikh, co-chair, New Jersey Young Democrats South Asian Caucus.
Thanks so much for inviting me to this panel. And also I want to say it's so good to see a lot of the people that I've been working with for Biden and through the New Jersey Young Democrats, Harini, Kareem. It's really great to see you guys. So I want to start off by answering the question, what a Biden-Harris administration means for us from the context of myself as a young Muslim woman. I think that's a question that a lot of Muslim leaders are asked. What does it mean for Muslims in America? And I don't want to beat a dead horse about the obvious hateful rhetoric that Donald Trump has spewed about our community in terms of having a Muslim ban and all the other things that he's said. Everybody pretty much knows about that. And yet somehow it still often is not convincing to many Muslim voters, which is why I always like to bring it back to policy. I think Joe Biden is so unique in that he has a very specific policy agenda for the Muslim community, and that was written by people on his campaign who are Muslims. And that's not something that I think you would find anywhere else, and it's incredibly valuable because it shows that the Biden campaign values not only the voice of our community, but also the fact that they want to implement policies that will impact us directly. So I want to speak a little bit to what some of those policies are. In terms of foreign policy, Joe Biden has had taken a very clear stance on the violation of human rights for Muslims across the world. And that's something that obviously the Trump administration has not taken into account. And it's something that's very valuable to Muslims here in America because we still very diligently care about what's going on with Muslims across the world, the human rights violations that they're experiencing. So Joe Biden has taken a clear stance on those issues in countries across the world. In addition to that, I think a really great reason why it's really important for Muslims to support the Joe Biden campaign is Kareem spoke a little bit about representation in terms of seeing somebody like Kamala Harris in the White House as a South Asian like myself, and that's wonderful. But I think the other really valuable thing is the Biden campaign has people working for him and also volunteering for him who look like us too. And this panel is a perfect example of that. He is taking insight from South Asians, from Muslims, and making sure that they are the ones offering the advice about what the policy positions should look like for topics that directly impact our communities. I don't know that you could say the same thing for the Trump campaign. I'm sure you cannot. You wouldn't find this level of diversity of people who are coming out to support the Trump campaign. And that just speaks to the Biden administration having the willingness to bring people who look like us to the table. And I'm really proud of that. As somebody who comes from a campaign background, I know it's really important for people like us to be running for office, but it's also incredibly important for us to be the ones working on campaigns and determining the policy positions, the messaging, the advertising that goes into these campaigns. Because at the end of the day, it's people who look like us that are going to see the ads. So we need to have people who look like us making the content too. So that's why I think it's incredibly important for our community to go out and vote for Joe Biden. I don't want to repeat what Kareem said in terms of the importance of phone banking. Obviously, AAPIs for Biden has an incredibly robust phone banking program that relies on AAPI individuals to reach out to AAPI voters, because like you said, it's really important to speak to people from your own community. But past that too, I think it's really important for our community to rely on relational organizing. As a Pakistani, as an immigrant, as a Muslim, I know that the conversations I have with my parents, with the people from my masjid community, or if any of you are in other religious communities, those conversations are the ones that make a real difference. So I would implore anybody watching this, if you haven't had those conversations with the people in your community who you have friendships with or relationships with, to reach out this weekend especially and ask them, have you voted? If not, do you know how? Can I help you? Do you need a ride? Is there any information that you need in terms of where you need to go to vote? Anything like that. Those are the conversations that really make a difference. And as Kareem said, the interconnectedness and the really relational nature of the AAPI community is a huge benefit to us, especially in communities like in states like Texas, where we have over 70,000 Pakistanis. So that's really where we can make the biggest impact. With that, again, I really want to thank you guys for having me on this panel.
Thank you so much, Sarah Sheikh. So we have like 5.5 more days left, and we got to work like 24/7 together, unitedly, stronger ever, to bring number 46 in the White House, our VP Joe Biden, as President of the United States of America, and Vice President Kamala Harris in the office. Thanks again. Now, we are just joined by Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, Democrat nominee from New York State Assembly District 34. I would like to put on your remarks on what does a Biden-Harris win means for our communities. Jessica Gonzalez Rojas.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Samna, for coordinating this very important discussion. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I am not a South Asian person, but I am a Latina and I'm a daughter of an immigrant. And I know the struggles that immigrants face in this country because we've all been through it. The lack of access to quality education, the lack of access to job opportunities, the lack of access to resources and languages that our families understand. Those are all barriers that our communities face. And I know through my father's story, which is probably the story of many in our family, the struggle that they went through to find, again, quality opportunities, quality education. He ended up getting his college degree when I was an adult and I was getting my college degree. But that's the immigrant story and that's the immigrant dream. And the only person, the clear person who's going to fight for the lives of our immigrant communities, for our communities of color, is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I think Kamala Harris's story is particularly profound and deeply connected to the story of many in our own families, in our own communities. I'm so honored to represent, or soon to represent, the 34th District in New York, which includes the neighborhoods of Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Corona, and Woodside and Queens. It is the most diverse community in the world. We speak nearly 200 languages. We have 27% of our communities are Asian and mostly South Asian. And this community was decimated by coronavirus and decimated by a virus that our current president, President Trump, could have stopped, could have taken action to prevent the lives lost in my community because of his inaction, because of his deficiency, because his inability to lead us in this moment. It is high time that we get a racist, misogynist monster out of the office and restore some dignity, some equity and grace, respect to the White House, and have someone that is fighting for our communities and is representing our communities in ways that we will never see, particularly with Kamala Harris. I'm very excited that we have a woman of color on the ticket. And I think it is an opportunity for all of us to make history. So our struggles as united, as a Latina, I join you all in fighting for our communities, our immigrant communities, our communities of color. We need representation, we need our voices heard, and we need to make sure that our aunties, our uncles, our primas, our tias, like everyone in our lives know how important it is to vote. And I know many in our community, many in my own family are ineligible to vote because of their immigration status. But guess what? Everyone has a job. If they can't vote, that's okay. They can knock on doors, they can make phone calls, they can walk people to the polls, right? They can energize their community and they can ask their neighbors to vote on their behalf since they are unable to vote. So we all have a job. We all have to fight to ensure that we have Biden and Harris at the top of our ticket and ensure that we're electing folks down the line as well who are going to represent our diversity, and our vision and our values. So thank you, Samna, for having me. I'm Zoom jumping tonight. I'm doing a text bank for the Working Families Party in New York. But it's so wonderful to see these, all the leaders across the country join us tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. Been working together with her for our elections campaign. You are the real fighter for our communities. Good luck. We are with you. Thanks again. Now, I'd like to call upon Honorable David Webrin. He just joined in, New York State Assembly member of District 24, for your valuable remarks on what does a Biden-Harris win means for our communities.
Thank you, Sumnath. And this is actually back-to-back. I was with Sumnath on a tribute to Mohammed Hack last night, who was celebrating a special birthday, his 65th birthday and wedding anniversary at the same time. And we had a lot of our leaders in Queens. That question is understated because it's not just what a Biden-Harris victory means to us. It really, what it means to the entire world. Because, right. As President of the United States, you're really, a leader of the free world, and we need that now more than ever. These last 4 years have been a disaster in so many ways, and I'm so proud of representing at the local level in the Assembly a very large South Asian community, a very diverse South Asian community, and I've worked with you with that community. And we're particularly proud of having one of the South Asian family running for Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, of course, whose mother is of Indian descent. And, she's a child of immigrants, both Indian and Haitian immigrants. I too am a son of an immigrant. My mom, who's just turned 90 and is going strong, is an immigrant from Cuba. And, we in Queens, and I know we have representatives from all over the country here, but we in Queens are so proud of our diversity. We have so many different countries and languages represented, and that's really our strength. Our strength is in our diversity, and I know the Biden-Harris ticket will respect that and appreciate that. And of course, things would be so different if Hillary was our president now. But I'm looking forward to Tuesday, and more importantly, actually to Wednesday, when we have a new president of the United States and a new United States senator from New York. We have Chuck Schumer, who will become the next majority leader of the United States Senate, a very important position. But I am so proud to represent a large South Asian community, as I mentioned, and that is such a diverse community, such a hardworking community, contributes so much, not only to the culture of our city, county, and country, but to also the economy. They really are the engine of the small business community, the medical community, and I'm so proud to represent such a large South Asian community. And I'm so proud of you, Sumnith, for your leadership in all aspects of that community. And I just really appreciate you inviting me here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable David Weprin, our New York State Assembly member, for your valuable thoughts, valuable advices, and the suggestions. Like you said, just bring blue back in the White House. Next 46 is Joe Biden and VP Kamala Harris. Just get out and vote, and let's work together unitedly. Thanks again. Next, I would like to call upon Timothy Heinz, and the educator and LGBTQ and disability rights advocate. Please welcome Timothy Heinz.
Thank you so much, and it's an honor to be a part of this panel. And it's refreshing to see so many former colleagues that I've worked with. Just to give you a little bit of background, I grew up in North Carolina, so I understand the importance of those races, both up and down the ticket. I have since moved from that state. I now live in the state of North Dakota, which is a very rural state. It's not so much a battleground state, but we still have our races here that are important. Our governor's up for re-election, and the person that we put up against the current governor has an understanding of what COVID is to our nation, what it's doing. And so we need to elect her to become our governor. And, going to the question asked, what does the Biden-Harris win look like for people across the country? As indicated, I'm an advocate for disability rights as well as the LGBT population. And when I think of the Biden-Harris winning next week, I think of an administration that actually respects individuals like us. I think of the inclusion that will encompass the United States once again. As a member of the disability community with a pre-existing heart condition, I know that the Biden-Harris ticket will secure my health care, my right to health care. I know that they will continue to fight for over 61 million Americans, in fact, that have a pre-existing condition and have a disability. With those things, you know, if things don't turn out the way we expect them to, those things are gone. And so it will be so refreshing next week, you know, when they win, I'll be able to keep my health care. I'll be able to look at other people with, you know, disabilities and say, we have fought so long for this. You know, this is our time again. This is an important issue to us. A Biden-Harris win, you know, for the LGBT community means that we are included in all parts of our everyday life. You know, with the transgendered community, they will be respected again. They'll be included. They will not be excluded from the military. You know, we will have all of these things that we have fought long and hard for suddenly be strengthened by this incoming administration and by this win. So those are the most important things that ring out to me as a member of both of those communities. What can I do as an ally to the Asian American and Pacific Islander voters in the United States? I can certainly pick up a phone to all of my friends. I can make sure that they understand what exactly is in stake for them in this election, not just for them, but also for me as well. And I can make calls into those battleground states such as North Carolina and Texas. I'm going to obviously play a little bit more favorite to North Carolina since I grew up there, but Texas is just as important with its electoral math. But as long as I know that I'm doing everything that I can to ensure a Biden-Harris win next week, I'll continue to do that. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to be on here.
Thank you so much, Timothy Heinz. Like you said, inclusion and equality. Right, we all together, and 5.5 more days. We can't relax and rest. This is the time to work much harder and harder to elect Biden and Kamala Harris in our White House. Next, I'd like to call upon Harini Krishnan, California State Director for South Asian for Biden. Please welcome Harini Krishnan for your valuable thoughts.
Thank you so much. Before we start, can we request whoever is that noise is coming from to mute if possible?
Yeah, yeah. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank Somnathji for inviting me to be part of this great event. And like he said, my name is Harini Krishnan, and I'm honored to be a co-state director for South Asians for Biden for California, and one of the grassroots organizing leads, helping to organize phone banks, text banks, and postcarding opportunities. What will a Biden-Harris win mean to the South Asian community? So I'm going to first talk about what it'll mean to South Asian community and what it'll mean to me personally. It'll mean a difference between a celebration of the beautiful diversity of our great nation and respect for minorities and immigrants, for the incredible contributions we have made to civil society, from the arts to science to technology, versus 4 more years of hateful rhetoric spouted by a xenophobic, misogynistic, racist president who demonizes and others minorities and immigrants and Native American people, and whose divisive rhetoric has caused an unprecedented increase in the number of hate crimes committed against members of the South Asian community. From the murder of Srinivasa Kuchibotla in Kansas, to most recently Paramjit Singh in Tracy, California, to the hate crimes committed on a daily basis against hijab-wearing Muslim women, and against Asian Americans in particular during this pandemic, our communities are living in fear of what 4 more years will bring. And a Biden-Harris win will mean more equitable leadership that cares about all Americans, regardless of your background, what language you speak, your faith, your ethnicity, your skin color, your gender identity, whom you love, and ensure that all Americans gain access to quality healthcare, public education, and equal economic opportunities. You know, on a personal note, a Biden-Harris win will mean the culmination of a journey that began for me in January 2019. I was honored to serve as a lead volunteer organizer for Senator Kamala Harris's campaign. And I got to know her and the future second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, very well. And seeing her on the presidential ticket as the first Black and South Asian woman is a source of great personal pride and inspiration, not only to me and my daughters and my family who got to know her, but to young women around this country who see themselves in her, who are now getting the permission to be ambitious and not ask for permission to lead. You know, South Asians for Biden under our national director, Neha Divan, has done an outstanding job of mobilizing the South Asian community this election season with 20 state chapters, 5 national councils, 3 faith-based affinity groups through events and exhaustive communications and rapid response strategy from traditional media to social media to WhatsApp, you know, a robust grassroots organizing machine, which includes 5 recurring national phone banks to battleground states of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Michigan, you know, every weekend, and many state-specific phone banks and postcarding initiatives. You know, we've really made inroads in terms of outreach, especially to South Asian voters in battleground states, and they will be the margin of victory this election. To date, we've collectively made more than 60,000 calls, sent more than 35,000 texts, thousands of postcards, put out videos from celebrities and influencers getting the message to South Asians nationwide. We just released a series of Get Out the Vote celebrity videos. One was a very powerful video from Deepak Chopra and his entire family. You know, the other one featured trailblazers like, you know, Asif Mandvi and Padma Lakshmi. And these are people that our community looks up to. And so we put out these videos and, you know, this has been able to, we've been really able to reach, you know, the South Asian communities in so many pockets around the country as a result of that. So with that, I will say that the Biden-Harris win will mean a lot to the South Asian community, but we have 5 days. We still have 5 days, and we still have 5 days to reach the 1.3 million voters, South Asian voters in battleground states. And we have phone banks this weekend. We have 5 phone banks this weekend with celebrity speakers, everyone from comedian Rajiv Satyal to actress Sheetal Sheth, actress Sakina Jaffrey, actor Nick Dodani, actress Manju Bangalore. We have, please attend our phone banks. Please please think about contributing an hour or 2 to make calls into South Asian voters, especially during the pandemic. Making calls is the most effective way to get out the vote. And we have one final event, which is kind of our season finale event on November 1st. I'm putting a plug for this. I'm going to put the link in chat. It features Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the 19th Surgeon General of the United States, Seema Nanda, who was the former CEO of the Democratic National Committee, a national hero, Khizr Khan, a Gold Star father. It features Neha Divan, our national director, as well as Shekhar Narasimhan, the chair of the API Victory Fund, with a special musical tribute from Ariana Afsar from the Broadway musical Hamilton. So I hope you will join us. I hope you will join us at our phone banks, join us at our national event. And I want to give a special shout out to all the South Asians for Biden family members that I have been truly honored and privileged to get to know in this journey, as well as the AAPI's for Biden team under the incredible leadership of Amit Jani. And so it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Harini, Krishnan. Yes, we all work together. And please shoot the information, whatever you have in our chat box, so that we can work together. In just 5.5 more days left, we got to work harder and harder, unitedly together. Next, let's go to Florida now. I'd like to call upon James Chan, who is Florida's AAPI activist and Democrat leader. Please welcome James Chan for your thoughts on what does the Biden-Harris win means for our communities.
Oh, I apologize. I was on mute. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on the panel. Again, my name is James Chan. I live in Tampa Bay, Florida. As you all know, Florida is the #1 battleground state, or one of the top ones. If we can win Florida, we stop Donald Trump right where he is and we kick him out of the White House. To date, there are 7.4 million votes already casted in Florida, which is a record turnout. And why this election and why a Biden-Harris victory is important to us is because what it would mean for our community being seen in the White House with Kamala Harris as our next Madam Vice President. And why Florida is so important when you think of the grand scheme of things, right? If we had won Florida in 2016, we would not have Donald Trump. We would be calling our president, Madam President Hillary Rodham Clinton. But instead we have Donald Trump. So everything really hinges on Florida. And if we can win Florida, we stop Donald Trump and Mike Pence. To put things in perspective, we really need to get out the API vote here in Florida. In Florida, the APIs make up 2.7% of the voters registered in the state, right? And that may not seem a lot in the grand scheme of things, but let me tell you, it is. Because in the last gubernatorial election and the last presidential election, Donald Trump only won by little more than 1%. So if all of our API brothers and sisters voted, we would stop Donald Trump right in his tracks. And what it means for us, not just to vote for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, but Democrats all up and down the ticket. In the Florida Senate, we're poised to pick up maybe 2 more seats, and that could potentially get us to equal parity to Republicans and really stop a lot of the bad things that are happening in the state legislature. We stop the attacks on the abortion rights. We stop the attacks on our democracy rights and our voting rights. So this is more important than ever. And, what's on the ballot in Florida includes a minimum wage increase to $15. And Republicans have chipped away at what is, the ballot process, where we could have passed Medicaid expansion on the constitutional ballot this year, but because of Republican efforts, we are not able to do so this year. And according to APIA vote, 17% of APIs living in Florida lack health insurance. And we are at that point where, with this new Supreme Court justice, we could have the ACA or Obamacare gutted, and a lot of our API brothers and sisters would lose their health insurance. My mom personally is on ACA. And without that, we would be back to pre-2010 days where we'd be living, thinking about how would we pay our medical bills if an emergency room visit had to occur. So again, thank you all for having me on this panel, and I hope you'll make calls into Florida to get out the API vote and really flip Florida and get Donald Trump out of the White House this year. Thank you.
Yes, you're right, James Chan, yes. Let's work together and let the number 45 get out in the White House. Number 46, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris in the White House, right after 5.5 more days. Can't wait that victory. Thanks again, James Chan. Next, I'd like to call upon Richard David, Democrat District Leader, New York State Assembly, District 31. Please welcome Richard David for your valuable thoughts. Okay, I think he got disconnected. Okay, he'll be joining. I'll call later. Next, Jamie Faye Bean. She's the Executive Director of Sunnyside Science and social activist. She's been working so closely to South Asian communities here in New York during the crisis of pandemic COVID-19. Please welcome Ms. Jamie Faye Bean for your valuable thoughts on what does a Biden-Harris win mean in our communities.
Thank you so much, Somnathji. And it has been one of the great honors of my life to fight alongside you these last 6 months as we've really worked on food relief and small business relief in our communities here. So I'm speaking tonight from Western Queens, from Astoria. And I'm sort of in awe of the other panelists and being included among you. And I just want to really sort of echo how so many of the different things that you've said apply on a very profound level on the local level. You know, as I mentioned, I've been working in food relief here in our communities, but I also run a business improvement district and work with about 300 small businesses here in Queens. And the effects of this pandemic on that community have really been devastating. One of the things that I have really felt is that there's, you know, there is such a grinding tension for our communities, especially for AAPI communities these days. And it just feels like there's been a perverse level of cruelty, racism, misogyny that is coming from the top level of our government. And it's just not sustainable. Right after 9/11, I was living in New Hampshire and my partner at the time was Palestinian. And I remember the first 2 weeks after 9/11, what it felt like fearing for him, because there was a very racist backlash, as many of us know, after 9/11 against anyone who is associated with the Middle Eastern community. And I'm feeling these days like I did in those first 2 weeks after 9/11. And I've been feeling this way for a while. So I think for me, a Biden-Harris win means a relief, hopefully from that, because we just can't go on living under this regime of fear. And as Americans who are all working side by side to enrich our communities, for folks to experience the type of fear and alienation that they are from their leaders, I don't think that we can continue as a nation like this. So I'm looking very much forward to that changing. I think it's a matter of our spiritual survival as a nation. I also am incredibly inspired by Kamala Harris, and I think I was just so excited when she was announced as Biden's running mate. My sons are half Pakistani, and so for us to sort of share in the excitement of seeing someone in different ways who represents us for the very first time, it's everything. And for me, as a not only a woman, but a woman who works very hard to be an ally to my sisters of color, to see that first woman vice president will be a woman of color, again, it's everything. Hira talked about inclusion. And again, it's incredibly important for voices of the AAPI community and other communities of color to be heard and to be integrated into policy. With our small businesses throughout the COVID crisis, we have seen on the local level how some of the relief that was made available, which was inadequate to begin with, but what was made available was not really applicable to many of our small businesses that were owned by immigrant business owners. And as we know, that small business experience, it's a really foundational one for so many immigrant communities, and particularly within the AAPI community. This is a way for folks to put a stake in the ground, to have a foundation for their children, to aspire to that American dream that we like to talk about. And I see in so many ways that that's being chipped away at, but especially during this pandemic, we have not had the leadership. And in fact, there's been so much obstruction at the federal level for the type of aid that we need for communities, that is really slipping away. And that's very, very scary to see, because from there we have a downward spiral into folks really, being pushed into gig work, to losing their life savings, and losing that ladder to upward mobility that our AAPI communities have relied upon in the past. So I think, for small business owners, I think this win hopefully will mean much less obstruction at the federal level. We will begin to see resources once again freeing up for our small businesses. And this is for individuals as well. With the CARES Act, we saw that many folks, immigrants, were very cruelly excluded from the individual aid payment that was made to Americans. And so I do think, when we think about our local races, we have to remember that not only is this the Biden-Harris win just essential, something we need, this is a matter of survival, but all of those other races down the ballot, the congressional races, the Senate races, your local races, Biden-Harris, they're going to need the support from the grassroots, from our local races on up. They're going to need that in order to rebuild and in order to promote the policies that mean so much to our communities. We're going to need them to save our access to quality healthcare and to hopefully expand that access. For women, we have the Supreme Court, which is, again, the future of our lives, the future of our daughters' lives, really depends on the Supreme Court and the appointments that will be made and the moves that will be made regarding the Supreme Court composition over these next few years. And that's something in which we need support on a full congressional level. Finally, I do want to say, working in food relief in the community, we've again seen that Donald Trump is willing to very cruelly exclude the districts that are not favorable to him. And he has very specifically punished Queens, and we've seen federal food aid being denied to our communities. I think again, just the abject cruelty, I can't think of any other word, it's perverse. And people are really at risk of losing everything. And I do think, as Americans, we talk about democracy and the right to disagree. But we've moved far beyond that. When we have essential resources being held hostage, we're no longer in a democracy. So I really feel like the Biden-Harris ticket, I don't want to sound alarmist, but this is what we need to pull us back from the brink. We're really in a very, very dangerous situation as a nation right now. So as someone in a safe blue state, I would say, please, everyone should be phone banking. They should be text banking. As Hira mentioned, having folks call one another that are from the same communities and can sort of speak the same languages and speak from the spot of the same experiences, it's incredibly powerful. So if you have language access, language capabilities, if you have a cultural background that you can bring to that, please, we've got an amazing set of speakers out here tonight that can help link you up with the right phone banking group. But these next 5 days, Somnath, you're right. We have to fight. We can't rest. We've got 5.5 days. It's pivotal. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Jenny, for being right. You are right. So Biden-Harris win means relief to everyone and everything. So we need to just gear up and work much harder to bring them back in the White House. Thanks again. Now I'd like to call upon Alex Maxwell from Ohio. He's the law student and former legal intern for the House Minority Caucus, Ohio. Please welcome Alex Maxwell for your valuable thoughts.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here among so many people who are working so hard to get Joe Biden elected. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening right now in Ohio. Currently in Ohio, we are in the minority in the House. In the Senate, we are so far in the minority that we can't stop anything, and we don't have the governorship. So I hope that a Biden-Harris campaign will bring not only a sense of being able to win at the presidential level in Ohio, but also the ability to start winning more at the state level. It's been a long time and it's been hard for Democrats in Ohio. And I hope that Biden's investment in Ohio will not only bring attention to Ohio every 4 years, but every election cycle, that we need to help end the Republican gerrymandering. The Republicans have gerrymandered Ohio so far that even though our former Republican Speaker of the House in Ohio got arrested on federal fraud and bribery charges, we're still not even going to probably have a shot to really win the state legislature, which you would think would be a given, since our Speaker of the House got arrested, and that law is still going to be on the books because the Republicans refused to take it away. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about what a Biden-Harris win means to me. To me, it means an increased focus on mental health in this country, not only from an access perspective in terms of protecting access to mental health, but also Biden's commitment to increasing the resources towards mental health, to helping incentivize people to go into the mental health profession. And this has been incredibly important for me personally, since I struggle with anxiety and depression. And, you know, before going into law school, no one told me that the way that I was feeling wasn't the way that people are typically supposed to even feel. So it took a long time to even get to the point of being able to get treatment. And I know that having access to treatment and having visibility around mental health will be a big help to so many people across this country. And I think it's one of the things that we're not talking about enough coming out of the coronavirus, or, you know, during the coronavirus, is that there's real mental health implications. I don't think the war for the coronavirus is going to be measured solely by lives saved or lives lost, but also we need to recognize the mental health consequences that these actions have had, the mental health consequences that a Trump presidency has had. And I'm excited for a Biden-Harris ticket to help combat the mental health problems, not only associated with the coronavirus, but as Biden eventually leads us past the coronavirus, to help increase accessibility and affordability for mental health services. So as I think everyone else has said, it's incredibly important that we elect a Biden ticket, and thank you so much for having me here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alex Maxwell from Ohio, for your valuable thoughts. Next, I'd like to call upon Morshed Alam, who is a freedom fighter and I believe first South Asian elected official in the history of New York. And he also ran for Senate seat in New York as well, I believe in 1987. Please welcome Morshed Alam for your valuable thoughts. Unmute, please. Unmute.
It's okay now?
Yes, I can hear now. Yes.
Hello, everybody. I'm Morshed Alam. I'm from Queens, New York, and I am a grassroots organizer. I love to see all the people in the panel, and it's an opportunity for me to learn a lot of interesting things about the election. And I just want to say one thing. We are in 1990s now. America went back 40 years back. Now we have to fight back to come in 2020. We have to get out people, and we are doing in the grassroots level. Especially I'm calling, my groups are calling in different state of the USA, like it's Florida, Detroit, Michigan, it's a Texas. We have a country girl, she's running for this Congress, Donna Imam. We are helping her, and we are calling people to get out and come for vote for her. So it is important to see all these people. One thing I have to say, we are fighting to get the decency back. Norm is, we have to bring back the norm and the courtesy, American value, all gonna be coming back in 2020 if we can elect Joe Biden, Harris, Kamala Harris. But we get to work hard. We have to ask all the people we know in different state, battleground state, to come out and vote, because sometimes people they don't. But this is the most important election in our life because civil rights is out of hand. Citizen rights are totally gone. We are not getting anything we needed for our community. And we do have a community. We are the citizen of America. We love this country. We are the part of this country. And we should get, not only we, all the citizens of America is now divided in two different states. Like I say, those who are Republican and supporting Trump, they're the number one, and number two is the Democrat, and those who don't support the Trump. You know that we all understand the Democratic state in America is in bad shape. We are not getting any help from the federal government. We are treating as like a third world country. So if we want to get back our rights, we have to work together. We have to fight back, and we have to bring in the baseline of all the rights we can get, because everything is gone back to 1960. If we want to bring back to 2020, we have to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I thank you everybody for coming and working hard for the presidential election. And this is the first time in the last 20 years I have seen grassroots people are involved in the presidential election in USA. This is my joy, and I'm working, and I'm asking everybody to work hard up to 3rd November, Tuesday. And hopefully new days we're going to find in 2020 on 4th of November, Wednesday. I thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Dalamda, for your valuable thoughts. Next, I'd like to call upon Edison Wilkinson, NC educator and community organizer. Please welcome Edison Wilkinson for your thoughts on what does Biden-Harris win mean in our communities.
Okay. Thank you. It's wonderful to see everyone, and also be in company of dear friends such as Tim, Caroline, Jay, and John, who I worked with as a field organizer back in 2014. I worked in Craven County, where I worked with the Democratic Party there. Currently, I'm an educator, and I've worked in urban, rural, and suburban schools all across North Carolina. I've been a part of North Carolina Association for Educators, advocating for teachers, staff, workers, and families. Also, I gotta say, I was also inspired. I started teaching after field organizing, but I was definitely inspired by Caroline, who came from education into field organizing, and her way of youth organizing was just astounding. And I wish you all could have been there to see it. But speaking as an educator, I think one thing, I'll start off with pay. We love the profession, but I can clearly remember the first years of teaching, there were 2 to 3 jobs. I worked 2 to 3 jobs. Biden's plan to increase teacher pay is critical. When I worked in North Carolina, which then was ranked the lowest for teacher pay, and I had to work extra jobs, whether it was Uber or Starbucks or whatever, it took away from time I could be lesson planning, I could be grading, I could be thinking about feedback for students. Also, I became overworked because I'm working with students and not just essays. I teach middle school English. So it takes away from the emotional bandwidth and patience that is necessary to teach youth. And when you overwork your teachers, it's going to diminish and detract from the quality of education that the students deserve. Also around that time, I think one bit of relief I had as a young professional was being on my father's health insurance. The Affordable Health Care Act was a tremendous relief for me. And so Biden's promise to strengthen the Affordable Health Care Act is a promise for so many young working Americans who want to get established, but need a little bit of assistance along the way. Also in North Carolina, I think it's really critical that we have universal pre-K, as Biden is who wants to work with states to make sure that's universal. Me personally, I don't know life without literacy. And the only reason that is true for me and not for other students is because my family qualified for a pre-K program at Faust Elementary in Greensboro, North Carolina. For the families who may not qualify but can't afford a pre-K program or a child care service, puts their kid behind. and it has a long-term impact on a child's education. Also, too, I think we need to also, I think it's great that Biden and Harris want to address the need for counselors and trauma responsive specialists in the school system. 1 in 5 children are experiencing mental health issues. And when you're working in areas where kids are living in school systems that are hyper segregated by race and income, you can see the statistic increase in your school. And a lot of the schools that you work with, you might have I think the average about 1,400 students to 1 psychologist. I know for me personally, I worked in schools where we had 1 psychologist, they weren't there every day, and we had no less than 1,000 students. And so for middle school, I don't know if you've ever been to middle school, but middle school is one of the worst times of adolescence development or adolescence life. And so to kind of go through that time with little guidance or with people who may not be the best to respond to what you're going through at that time, it can be really detrimental to your educational experience. I think too, it's great that we have a candidate or candidates with Harris and Biden who want to reduce the trauma, all right? Reduce the trauma that is being caused. So when we're talking about lack of healthcare, low wages, and job opportunities, it's going to manifest right there in the classroom because maybe the lights were on. Maybe you didn't get a meal that morning. These are things that have to be addressed. I also really respect limiting the NRA's influence on gun laws, because I think of my time in the classroom, I taught through the tragic Parkland shooting. And I remember right after the shooting, the students organized a demonstration. They wanted to demonstrate. They wanted to go ahead and make their voices heard. When my homeroom was planning that demonstration or planning their part of the demonstration, one student ran right out the classroom and he started crying. And I spoke to him. I said, "What's going on? What's happening?" He was a young man from Honduras. He lost his father to gun violence, and he couldn't fathom having to re-experience this in America when he worked so hard to escape gun violence from his home country. And so we need a president who wants to go ahead and address these issues and also speak up for people who are trying to escape, and seek asylum. It doesn't take that lightly. And will respond to the kids, or the over 500 kids who are who've lost complete contact with their parents. We need a president, and we need candidates to respond to those issues. So when I think about what all this means, I think I really go back to my first teaching job on the east side of Charlotte, North Carolina, which was an urban school. I taught middle school. I taught at that middle school where there were 31 languages and dialects represented, students from all over the world: Nepal, Burma, Korean, Cambodia, Pakistan, Vietnam. I had the pleasure of teaching a language inclusive class, so students who might have recently immigrated to the United States were in my room, and just being able to have those really great conversations about literature and also apply it to our experiences was enriching. And so I think about those students, and I think about the students seeking asylum and the refuge and the families who immigrated, like my own, for a hope of opportunity. And a Biden-Harris win is a critical investment for these students and their families. And ultimately, it's a restoration of hope that we've completely lost in the past 4 years. So those are just my thoughts. And I thank you again so much for having me here tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Edison Wilkinson, for your valuable thoughts and sharing your experiences. And yes, like you said, we are all together in this battle, and we will win in 5.5 more days, and which gives relief to all. Biden-Harris win means love all and respect all. Thanks again. Now, I'd like to call upon Naveen Saha, who is the program manager for South Jersey Boys Rate. Please welcome Naveen Saha for your valuable thoughts on what does Biden-Harris win mean in our communities.
Hello, everyone. My name is Naveen Shah, and I'm happy to be on today's panel. And if you notice anything, it's that I'm probably a good bit younger than the rest of the panelists here. And so my answer to the question.
You are the youngest one here. Yeah.
My answer to the question will really rely on that a little bit more. So far, the opinions I've heard, kind of echo my own. I agree with past speakers that a lot of this rhetoric from Donald Trump has been harmful in a non-quantifiable way. So it's not very easy to put a certain value to it. And that is why, we address policy a lot, but I think it's really, understated the importance of a president that leads by example, speaking wise and policy wise to some extent. So I am an Asian American. I'm from, my mom is from New Delhi and my dad is from Gujarat. So I am 100% Indian, but I'm also an American citizen. I was born in this country. And so I have a strong tie to what's going on currently. And I would just kind of like to tell you a little bit about my experience in the election so far. So I am 17. I was born 1 year too late to participate in what I view as the most important election of my lifetime. And that's been a little bit of a frustration for me so far. So I have tried to get involved in some ways. I've talked to my friends, to my relatives, to everybody I can kind of, have a conversation with about this, because I view that as like the single most important thing a person can do is to because, let's be honest, you get a phone call from somebody to a certain extent, that's great. But when somebody somebody you already have a personal connection to reaches out to you and says, hey, this is really important, I think that gives you, that gives them a level of responsibility that they feel to kind of work with what you've given them, what you've told them to do. I did participate in a phone bank for Joe Biden, and I was happy to hear a lot of people list it. My experience was definitely interesting. I called Pennsylvania voters and asked them if they had a voting plan to vote. And it was interesting to hear how many people either hadn't received their mail-in ballots or were planning on mailing them at a point where I felt like it was too late and I had to warn them of that. So that's something I feel like we can actually do 5 days out, is stress to people, hey, if you haven't received your mail-in ballot or you have your mail-in ballot, maybe don't rely on it. Maybe go in person and try to vote in that way to make sure that your vote is counted, because that is the single most important thing, right? And when I think of what a victory means, I share the views of a lot of people, the rest of the panelists here, as for what it means from Kamala Harris or seeing representation. But as a youth, I would argue that some of the most important things in 50 years are going to be determined by our next 4. Consider environmental policy for a second, right? One of the, pitfalls of the Trump presidency, one of the worst parts, in my opinion, was the whole, bringing Rex Tillerson in oil, in ExxonMobil CEO, to this position where he could do so much damage to the work that President Obama did with the Paris Accords, and to the way this country was moving, that started with let's say Al Gore, pushing this into the spotlight. So for me, a vote for Joe Biden is really a vote for my future. Somebody who can feel like this country has a future that's not going to be more and more issues, that's not going to be global warming causing more and more natural disasters and stuff like that happening. So I would really urge you to vote. I would urge you to tell your relatives to vote, to tell your friends to vote, because I can't vote. And that's so frustrating to me. Vote for me so that you guys can get your voice heard. And through you, I get my voice heard as well. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Navin Shah, the young, energetic grassroots level activists here. We are very proud of you for your suggestion, but it's very sad that you can't vote this year. But definitely, like you said, the future of yours belongs to this lifetime historic votes, which is going on now in a matter of 5.5 more days. Let's get out and vote, like you said, get out and vote, and bring blue back in the White House so that your future is well secured. Thanks again. Now, I would like to call upon John J. Mulholland Jr., President of Emeritus, South Jersey Young Democrats, founding co-chair of New Jersey Young Democrats, and my very supportive friend of mine. We have been working closely since last year. Please welcome John J. Mulholland Jr. for your valuable thoughts on what on the topic that provided Biden-Harris win means a lot to our communities. Please welcome John J. Mulholland Jr.
Thank you for that very, very kind introduction. And again, it's been an honor to get to work with you to bring these sorts of panels together that emphasize both empowerment and community. And sort of with the question at hand, what does a Biden-Harris win mean for our communities? I can't help but think about the same thing that I've said to every individual who has ever ran for office, regardless of whether or not they were definitely going to win, whether they were like, it was like something like this, that's the race of truly maybe the most important race of our lifetime, or that they were definitely going to lose or they had a shot in the dark of winning, is that the way a candidate campaigns says a lot about how they're going to approach the job when they're elected. And I think in that regard, we see incredible things from the former Vice President and Senator Harris in that regard, is that they are focused on things like empowerment in community and responding to COVID-19 in a very real way. I mean, this approach, outreach approach to Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders shows it. I mean, we've heard that countless times from panelists. We've heard about people calling across the country into their communities, utilizing, into their ethnic backgrounds and their language groups, and that level of empowerment really matters. And as you alluded to, both in my role as President Emeritus of the South Jersey Young Democrats, or the co-founder of the New Jersey Young Democrats Policy Committee, or in my governmental role, I think it's crucially important in New Jersey that we do that. I mean, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are the fastest growing group in New Jersey. And in terms of percentage, only California and Hawaii have a higher number of their population. So quite legitimately, what happens to that community is what happens to New Jersey and what happens to the rest of this country. And as was said earlier by one of the state assembly members, the reality is the world hangs in the balance based on how this election goes. And I don't think that was overstated at all. A lot of things were hit on earlier, but I think in terms of the small business impact is so real. I think Jamie Fay made a really great point there, that those small businesses that are so important to Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and immigrants in general, and all kinds of communities across the United States, were horrendously affected by COVID-19 and this lack of a response to that size. We basically saw relief programs that really only helped major corporations and didn't do much for small business owners. And the Biden-Harris plan very much is focused on driving $30 billion of private sector investment to those small businesses. I mean, that's very real in every sense. We talk about employment, we talk about what community structures mean, we talk about just a sense of pride, and that is huge. We've talked about other inequalities this evening, like educational inequalities, and we have to make sure that we have good quality teachers throughout the United States who are capable of educating everywhere. I mean, the great equalizer in the United States is a good education, and if we don't put real resources into that, it's never going to happen. And we've seen under this Secretary of Education that that's not been a priority. And I know that under a Biden-Harris administration, it really will be a priority once again. And I think we've alluded to, I've said in prior panel discussions that you've put together, Somnath, that the reality is that this global pandemic has only just shown us in some ways that Democrats have been right all along on policy, And they've also just shown us all of the, just sort of aggravated all the inequalities that have existed. And a prime example that we see again and again is both the urban and rural digital divides in the United States. That the inability for individuals to have reliable internet access when they needed it the most, when they were needing it to educate, when they were needing it to work from home, when they were needing it to stay connected to family and friends or get licensed, get professional licensure, whether you're taking their bar exam remotely. We saw that failed far too many times in a tragic degree. And the Biden-Harris administration is going to make sure that we connect that broadband access to every American. That is probably the thing of our generation, whether or not, we're not talking necessarily of a legal definition, but I think we all know on this panel that internet is a utility. And if we don't make the same kind of commitment that someone like President Franklin Delano Roosevelt made to make sure that when he did with electricity, he made a decision that every American deserved electricity, and we were committed to rural electrification. We need to have that same kind of commitment and be willing to put the same amount of resources to broadband access. And I think generally we have to continue to organize for empowerment across our communities and our states. And I think forums like this are going to be huge. It was a true honor for me to get to have so many co-panelists that I've worked for in different capacities. And I don't think any of us, the 4 people I worked with in North Carolina that are on this panel in 2014, I don't think we ever imagined we would be on a panel tonight discussing these issues. I don't think we'd ever imagined we would be in the roles that we're in today, but here we are, and that's a network that we can rely on. A former intern of mine is also on this panel this evening, and I think the point of that, the only reason I bring that up is I hope after this evening we all form sort of a fellowship as well, that as we've shared in the sidebar comments this evening, that we talk about both literally the phone banks we can get involved in over these next 5.5 days to win this election, but also we need to continue to work together across community, across states, across this country, and frankly around the world. And I know that that's something you specialize in doing. Somnath is bringing people together, and I'm happy to have played a small part in that.
Thank you, John, for your valuable thoughts and outstanding help and love and support to our foundation. This is only possible with your help and support that we are bringing up together and working together to build our future generation stronger and better ahead. And as we are teamed up, we must vote Democrats candidate right in the White House, bring Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, our next historic president, number 46. Now, I have a couple of questions from our live viewers from the social media. First question goes to Caroline Spencer. What is the chances of painting blue in your state, North Carolina?
Did you say what are the chances of North Carolina?
Painting blue in North Carolina.
It is a toss-up. It's 50-50. One day, we're up, one day we're down as far as Biden and Harris. So that's why we're working so hard every day to turn out the vote in Wake County and kind of pull us over the edge. Things are looking good. We're very hopeful. We really need for Biden and Harris to win because I think that hopefully they'll have some long enough coattails to pull everyone else along. We also have a Supreme Court election this cycle with a lot of people on the ballot. We need to keep our Chief Justice Sherry Beasley. So with the federal courts, I know someone mentioned earlier, federal courts being so important, our state courts are going to be kind of a last line of defense for some folks too. So many things are so important. North Carolina is ground zero. Wake County is even ground zero within the ground zero. So we've just got to turn out the vote. And I cannot stress enough how neck and neck it is here and how grateful I am to y'all for inviting me to tell you all about that.
Thank you, Caroline Spencer, for answering that question. Next, I have for Timothy Heinz. What do you think the best policy of Biden-Harris, if they're elected in the office, for equality and inclusive?
And that's a great question. Thank you for giving that to me. I think that the biggest thing that I think is the great thing for the ticket would be, Joe Biden has committed to, within his first 100 days of being in office, passing the Equality Act. In addition to that, the John Lewis Civil Rights Act. Both of those two are monumental pieces of legislation which provide inclusiveness not only for the LGBT community, but also for the African American community. And it also provides voting right inclusions for our Native American brothers and sisters and other areas of the country that have certain restrictions within their state boundaries or territory boundaries. For example, in North Dakota, we have a high Native American population, and for the general election, because of COVID-19, everything is centralized to the 4 major cities in the state, and there are a couple reservations that have maybe 1 voting location. Whereas if we didn't have COVID, in a normal year, they would have 1 or 2 at most. Within those 2 pieces of legislation, we would expand more voting locations, not only on reservations, but across North Dakota as well. And again, as I've stated, the Equality Act and the John Lewis Civil Rights Act within the first 100 days.
Thank you so much, Timothy and Heinz, for that answer. Next, I have a question for Alex Maxwell, one of our live viewers. Asked him, what is the chances of winning Ohio, bringing back blue in Ohio State?
I mean, it seems pretty good. I think as another speaker talked about, it seems like every poll you're seeing things go 50-50. I also think, though, that when you look at Ohio, we finally have a chance for the first time in about 20 years to flip the Supreme Court from red to blue, even though we have quote unquote nonpartisan judges and nonpartisan elections here. So I think we have a good chance of flipping Ohio, and I think it's key that Ohio has correctly predicted the president a vast majority of the time. So I think being competitive in Ohio is important. And I hope that we will be able to not only win Ohio, but win a bunch of crucial races down ballot that can help the people of this state, not just the Biden-Harris race. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Alex Maxwell, for the answer. Next, I have for Edison Wilkinson. Do you think the Black Lives Matter policy would be better than Obama administration once Biden-Harris in the office?
Do I think it'll be the Black Lives Matter policy will be better under the Biden administration?
Right.
Okay. So I believe yes. I think he's going to build on strong points that are going to really kind of build the community conversations that need to happen instead of the divisiveness we're seeing between our officers and people of the Black community. We need someone who's going to not demonize our peaceful protesters. So I think it's going to simply yes. To put it simply, yes. I have a strong belief that there will be a lot better policy when it comes to race and reconciliation under the Biden administration.
Thank you so much, Edison Wilkinson, for the answer. Next, I have a question for Hira Sheikh. You mentioned earlier that South Asian voters are gearing up, increasing in the numbers to vote for Democrats. But what do you think about the South Asian, especially Muslim women voters? Are they increasing too?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I could absolutely speak to from personal experience as a Muslim woman myself. But also in my own community in New Jersey, from the first day of getting involved in politics, majoring in political science, taking on a career in politics, so many young Muslim women in my community had reached out to me and other Muslim women leaders like myself to ask, how can I step up and get involved in this field? Candidly, it's often stigmatized in our community, especially in the South Asian community. I'm sure many people know it's stigmatized to have a career in politics, but it's been so inspirational for me to see other young women reach out to me and to other young women, Muslim leaders. In New Jersey alone, we actually had a Muslim woman who was the first Muslim woman to run for Congress in New Jersey this year. So it's definitely an increasing population. We also have groups like Muslim Women for Biden, which have been holding regular phone banks, regular GOTV rallies for the campaign. And I don't know that that's something that had existed in presidential campaigns prior to this. So it's really inspirational for me to see. I'm only 26, and it's so great for me to see women like me who are trailblazing and allow me to also kind of, they've passed the mic down to me and allowed me to take kind of a leadership role on as well. And it's an honor for me to be able to do that to women younger than me who are in college or high school. So it's absolutely a growing voting bloc. And this is a group of people who are wonderful at organizing too. Muslim women are the backbone of our communities. We are the ones who are going to all the masjid functions, who are discussing policy issues with their children, with their spouses, with everyone in their community. So it's an incredibly important and influential voting bloc, I think.
Thank you so much, Irasek, for the answer. Now, we are wrapping up in 30 seconds remarks, conclusion remarks. First, I'll call upon Honorable David Weprin, Assembly Member, New York State Assembly Member, District 24. Please unmute David Weprin, Honorable David Weprin. So we are finishing up, wrapping up in 6 minutes. You have 30-second wrap-up remarks. David Weprin, Honorable David Weprin. Okay, he looks muted. Next, wrap up the remarks, 30 seconds. Morshed Alam Da. Morshed Alam Da. Okay, I'll call later. Next, Jamie Fabien.
Thank you once again, Somnath, for this opportunity. I think this is really the election of a lifetime for many of us, and it's of pivotal importance for our AAPI communities, for people of color across the United States, for women, for our younger generation. It really means the chance to restart, to come back to a place where we de-escalate some of the violence and hate that we've seen ramp up over the last 4 years, and to rebuild together as a nation. It means a chance to bring credibility back to our White House, gravitas back to the office of President of the United States. And it's also an opportunity to vote in representatives down the ballot who can really support that mission of making us the best that we can be. Thank you.
Thank you for the conclusion remarks. Next, I'll call on Alex Maxwell. 30 seconds wrap up, please.
Yes, thank you again so much for having me. It's been an honor to be here tonight. My conclusion, I think, is very simple. We need to elect Biden-Harris, and we need to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. And we have 5.5 days to make that a reality. Otherwise, we're going to be saddled with 4 more years of complete ineptitude and a lack of ability to address the coronavirus. And I mean, for even just young people like me who saw the economy that I'm about to graduate law school into crash almost overnight, I think we need a president who has a plan to rebuild the economy in a way that works for everyone. And Joe Biden is that person. So go out and vote. Make sure your family members vote. We all need to get out and vote and win this election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Next, the youngest panelist, Naveen Saha.
Hi, like the others, I was very happy to be on this panel tonight. I just want to say this is the most important election of your lifetime. It's the most important one of mine, and I can't even vote. So the point I'm going to make, again, just get out there, vote, do it. I don't really have anything else to say.
Yeah, that's it. Just get out and vote. Thank you. Next, Edison Wilkinson.
All right, thank you again for having me tonight. Wonderful to be in such great company. Again, I guess like everyone's saying, we just need an equitable leader, or a leader who's going to be equitable and holistic in the approach to education, as I mentioned before. And we need someone who's going to believe, or we need an administration that's going to believe in science, especially when we're talking about bringing kids back into a building. Someone who's going to think about things such as funding PPE and ventilation systems, the materials necessary to open when it is possible, and just kind of think about that in the most sensible way. All right. So, but thank you again.
Thank you so much. Next, Caroline Spencer.
Again, thank y'all so much for having me. I'm going to close with just asking you, have you made your plan to vote? Do you know where you're going to vote, how you're going to do it, what day you're going to go? Here in North Carolina, you can vote early in person through Saturday. After that point, you can either vote by mail. I recommend dropping it off. Look up where you can do that, or you can vote on election day. You still have early voting through Saturday here. But make your plan, when, how, who you're going to take with you, wear your mask, be safe, and make sure you tell everyone else to do it. Once you do that, sign up for one of these phone banks and get some other folks to do it. So y'all have a good night. I know we're going to take North Carolina because of your help.
Great, thank you. Do or die, 5.5 more days. Next, Hira Sheikh, please.
Once again, thank you so much for having me on the panel, and I'm so humbled to hear from all the other panelists. You're all doing amazing work. So the one leaving impression I want to leave with the audience with is AAPI voters often feel distrustful or disillusioned with a political system that doesn't always speak to them. This year is different. The Biden campaign is going out of its way to speak to the AAPI community, and I think every single AAPI voter should feel or should know that their voice has an outsized impact. Our voice doesn't stop at our vote. The conversations we have with our communities, with other voters through phone banks, means so much more coming from people who are like us, because we are trusted messengers, as other panelists have stated. So I hope that everyone listening to this, if you are already a Biden supporter, please go out of your way in the next 5 days to phone bank, write postcards, and speak to everyone in your community and get them to vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hira Sheikh. And the next, John J. Mullan.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, this election is about the soul of the United States, right? We talked early at the beginning of the conversation about what terrible things the Donald Trump presidency's meant for America. We've talked about the hateful rhetoric. We've talked about the inept response to COVID-19. We have an opportunity. It's like many of the panelists said, it's going to be the most important election in our lifetimes. It's an election with global consequences. And in short, we need to do everything we can to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as President and Vice President of the United States. And we need to do it in large part because of their commitment to empowerment and commitment to empowerment of all the various communities across this country that make this country great. And I hope we got to do everything we can in the next 5.5 days. And then when that's done, we should all continue this conversation about what that means when we're going to begin to govern a more fair country. Thank you very much, Sama.
Thank you so much, John. Next, final call, Honorable David Weprin, Assembly Member, New York State Assembly Member. Honorable David Weprin, for your 30 seconds wrap-up remarks. A final call to Morshed Alamda for your 30-second wrap-up. Okay, it looks like they are busy somewhere. And again, so thanks again, everyone, all the respected panelists, respected leaders who are working tirelessly 24/7. Now we got to work 24/7, even 14, double the work now, 5.5 more days. Let's just work, and relax and rest. Right after November 3rd, we have better days coming up from November 4th. We believe, we hope, and relief for everyone, everybody. love all, respect all once Biden-Harris in the office. Thanks again to our respected panelists who took their valuable time out, precious time out, and put together in this forum today to work together, elect our 46th President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris. And we will hear a very good news soon, right, in the morning of November 4th. Thanks again. Keep in touch. We look forward working together in near future. Stay safe and well, and good night, everyone. Bye-bye.